Hey, my name is Erin Micklow, and today I'm going to walk you through how to do a DIY dye bath.
Fight, fight, fight! Fight, fight, fight! Fight, fight, fight! Fight, fight, fight!
Okay, so the first step on every dye bath is always to get the garment completely soaked. You want every spot of it to be wet, and this is important because it provides an even dye job.
Fight for survival, this feeling in your gut, 'cause we fight to live. We live to fight. We don't give a shit. What's wrong or what?
Next, you're going to start to fill your tub. I recommend a tub that is long and shallow as opposed to short and deep. That's because it's easier to spread the pieces out in it, which also gives it a more even dye bath. If your pieces are crumpled in the tub, then you're less likely to have it evenly dyed, and there'll be spots where some are lighter, some are darker. So a tub like this is best. You're going to fill it with hot water, as hot as you can get it. So once the tub starts to fill, you're going to put in your salt. I use just the regular salt, cheap stuff, Morton's. So the instructions on the dye say for each bottle of dye, you want to do 1 cup of salt. Because we're doing a darker fabric, the overalls are already a dark denim, we're going to do 2 bottles of dye this time. It's best for black dye when you're doing black on something that's dark as opposed to light, that you add more dye so that you really get a good, even, solid, dark black color. So I use Rit dye. These run about $4 or $5 a bottle. You can get them on Amazon, Michaels, Walmart. So you want to shake it. And then as the tub starts to fill, you're going to pour it in. Everything with dyeing it's important to try and make everything as even as possible. So I like to put the salt and the dye in as the tub is filling up because I feel like it mixes it all together as opposed to waiting for the tub to be full and then dumping everything in. Just using a little bit of the excess dye that's in the bottle. So we're going to put our second bottle of dye in, so we can get these overalls a fairly dark shade of black. If you were to say do 1 bottle of dye for a pair of overalls that dark, what would happen would be is they would come out kind of a charcoal grayish color. So that's why 2 bottles is recommended. Now that our tub is full, I have a spoon like this with holes in it. I feel like it's easier to move the fabric and the dye bath around. I'm just going to stir it a little bit to make sure everything's even. And we're going to take the wet overalls. These were vintage Levi's Get Stock. You're going to take them and you're going to put them in and try to put them in as even as possible. You don't want to have them crumpled up into a ball in the dye bath. So obviously they don't fit in the tub all the way. So you're just going to try to put them in with everything fully submerged. This is where the spoon comes in handy. You don't want to put your hand in there because the water's hot. And so once all that is submerged, I'm going to try to work this in. And instead of putting it in and folding it over, I'd rather kind of smush everything together a little bit instead of having a fold, because I'm worried if you did the fold then it wouldn't come out as evenly. And you might have some spots on your overalls where they're lighter than other spots. Okay. So once that's all submerged in there, you're going to let this sit for about an hour. About halfway through, maybe 20-30 minutes, you want to flip it over, check on it, make sure there's no wrinkles in it, and I like to flip it to make sure everything is fully covered in the dye bath so you get a really even dye. So once it's been at least an hour, you can check to see if the piece is darkened, which it is. So I'm going to remove the piece now. Oh, very carefully. Put some latex gloves on so the dye doesn't get all over my hands. So I'm going to pull the overalls out. and bring them into the sink to rinse them off. Rinsing is very important because it'll help prevent the dye from bleeding. So you want to rinse the overalls until the water runs clean. Until you don't see any more dye coming out. And you don't want to wring them because that can make the dye uneven. You want to just keep rinsing. It can take up to 10 minutes. Be patient with it. You can gently press if you need to see if it still has excess dye. So just keep turning and rinsing. Ew. It's getting messy. Once they're running, the water is running fairly clean. It's time to throw them in the wash. And as a side note, if you stained your sink, the best thing to clean it with is Comet and a brush like this, and it'll get your sink clean again. So after the rinse, you're going to throw them in the wash. I know it might seem a little wasteful to wash just one thing at a time, but trust me, you don't want to wash this with anything else. I have done that before, and the dye will bleed onto your other clothes that are not freshly dyed. So I usually do a cold water wash. Because we use 2 bottles of dye for this dye bath. You can take some of your blacks that need a touch-up and go through the same process. First you want to wet them, and then you can let them sit in the dye bath. But for this, I want to let them sit a little bit longer than we did the first one because the water's not hot anymore. So I wouldn't recommend this process for anything that you're dyeing for the first time. I'd recommend it only for blacks that need a touch-up because the dye bath is not going to be as strong as when we first made it. We're going to let these soak for longer than an hour. I mean, the longer you soak them, the more the dye is going to absorb into the pieces. And then you're going to do the same process that we did with the other ones. You'll wash them and put them in the dryer as well. Rinse, wash, dry.